This is a book of John, chapter 4, verse 22. The Samaritans do not really know you worship, but we Jews know whom we worship, because it is from the Jews that salvation comes. I like to give all praises and glory to Almighty Yahweh Yahushai. I like to give all praises and glory to Almighty Yahweh Yahushai. Double honors to the men of GMS who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is Brother Boaz on the set once again. Now, salvation is of the Jews, okay? All the other nations, they're going straight into slavery, okay? It's just a little bit of time left that we have until this pending transaction goes through, okay? Well, our job is to keep posture and to keep calling on the supreme God, Yahweh Yahushai, so we can make it out of here with our life when this thing goes down, okay? America's finished, okay? It's going down, okay? The America's destroyed, okay? That's why you have to come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures while you still can, okay? That's what this is all about, okay? The so-called white man's going down, okay? That's what Yahweh's going to bring the so-called white man down. That's why we have to call upon the higher power, the supreme God, Yahweh Yahushai, okay? Starting with Christ, Yahushai. That's what this is about. The book of John, chapter 4, verse 23. But we but the time is coming and is already here when, by the power of Yahweh's Spirit, people will worship the Father as He really is, offer Him the true worship that He wants. Yahweh is Spirit, and only by the power of His Spirit can people worship Him as He really is. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Okay, coming back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures and worshiping the Father as He wants, in spirit of truth. Okay, that's what He wants. Okay, and like we discussed, the so-called white man's going down. Okay, his rulership is going down. Okay, the other nations, they're going to drop missiles on them. Okay, and put them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the so-called white man in slavery. Okay, the so-called white man's going down, and he's going straight into slavery. That's what this is about. Let's get it. Call, calling on His divine name. That's how you're going to make it out of here with your life when this thing goes down. And don't worry, we are going to get our get back at this man, okay? We are going to get our get back at this man, okay? Don't think that this man has got away what he done, okay? No, Yahweh Shai is a God of payback, okay? We're gonna get our payback on this devil, okay? For everything, for firing us off our jobs, for laying us off, for not giving us a job, for the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25, verse 14. I will pay Babylonia back for what they have done, and many nations and great kings will make slaves of them. Okay, so the many nations and great kings are going to make slaves of the so-called white man. Okay, he's going into slavery. Okay, he's going to be destroyed. Okay, Esau, Edom. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, he's going to be destroyed and put straight into slavery. Okay, our job is to keep calling on Yahweh's divine name, okay, so we can make it out of here with our life, okay. Okay, one moment. Okay, the so-called white man's the past. Okay, he's gonna be destroyed. Okay, okay. Then when after 1,000 years, after 1,000 years, the so-called white man's gonna get eradicated. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, that's what these dark senses is saying. Okay, that's why if you have a chance to come back into the fold, you should do so. Okay, come back into the fold so you can make it out of here with your life when this thing goes down. Okay, that's what this is about. That's what this is all about. Okay, coming back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures while you still can. Okay, we gonna get beamed it up on some UFOs. Okay, we gonna get beamed it up on some UFOs. Okay, and that's how we're going to receive our salvation. Okay, we're going to get beamed up on some UFOs while the angels. I heard Ariade said the angel is 100 feet long with big wings like an aircraft. Okay, like an aircraft carrier. Okay, this white man fucked up on this one. Okay, he didn't think things through. Okay, they're gonna destroy America. America's doomed. Okay, America. That's why it's going down now. America's doomed. Okay, America's destroyed. Okay, that's what this thing is about. America is destroyed. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 19. His anger is a storm of a furious wind that will rage over the heads of the wicked, and it will not end until it have done everything he attempted to do. And days to come, his people will understand this clearly, okay? So when days are come, you're going to understand this is clearly, okay? The so-called white man's finished, okay? He fucked up on this one, okay? He didn't think things through. The angels are going to come down here and jack this fucking place up, okay? Excuse my French, okay? And destroy this place, okay? Though he made his though he made his nest as high as an eagle, okay, that's why he builds these skyscrapers, okay, and high, and his missile technology, okay, he think no one's gonna take him down, okay. The so-called white man's going down, okay. He's finished, okay. That's why you have to call upon the names of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open, okay. Come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures while you still can. Okay, one moment. That's what this is all about, okay? The book of the book of Jeremiah, chapter 27, verse 1. Soon after Josiah, the son of Zedekiah, became king of Judah, Yahweh told me to make himself a yoke cut out of leather, straps, and wooden crossbars, and put it upon my neck. Then the Lord Yahweh told me to send a message to the king of Edom, Moab, Ammon, Tyre, and Zidon through their ambassadors who had to Jerusalem to see King Zedekiah. Yahweh Almighty, the power of Israel, told me to command them and their kings that Yahweh has said, by my great power and strength, I've created the human beings and all the animals that live on the earth. And if anyone I choose as am the one who place all these nations underneath the power of my servant King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and I have made even the wild animals subject to him. Okay? The so-called white man's going down, okay? He's going to be destroyed, okay? That's why you still got a chance now. You want to come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures, okay? That's what this is all about, okay? Salvation is of the Jews, okay? We're gonna get put back upright. That's what the day of the Lord is talking about, okay? The day of Yahweh Shai, okay? The day of the Lord. That's what this is talking about, okay? Okay, one moment. I will make slaves out of the king of Babylon. Okay, that's what this is all about, okay? The so-called white man's finished, okay? He's gonna go down, he's gonna be destroyed, okay? That's why you have to come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures, okay? The Yahweh Shah is going to destroy this place, okay? It's going to be destroyed, okay? That's why it says come back to who you are in relationship to who you are while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open, okay? All the other nations, they're going to get sick of Babylon and drop missiles on this place, okay? And drop missiles on this man. The book of Isaiah, chapter 13, verse 1. This is a message about Babylon, which Isaiah, the son of Amos, received from Yahweh. On the top of the barren hills, raise a battle flag, shout to the soldiers, and raise the arm as the signal for them to attack the gates of the proud city. That's America, okay? To attack the proud city, okay? When the so-called white man went up in space, okay, that's when that now his kingdom is going down. Now it's nothing but a little bit of a kingdom left, okay. Okay, America's going to be eradicated, okay, and you don't want to be caught when this thing goes down, okay. You want to be you're gonna want to be Shakir when this thing goes down. Yahweh has called his proud and confident soldiers to fight a holy war to punish those he has angry with. Listen to the noise of the mountains, the sound of a great crowd of people, the sound of nations and kingdoms gathering. Yahweh of Yahweh of armies is preparing his troops for battle. They are coming from a far country at the ends of the earth. In his anger, Yahweh is coming to devastate the whole country. Okay, that's America. Okay, Yahweh Shah is coming to devastate the whole country. Okay, that's the angels. They're gonna be coming down here, and they're gonna eradicate these people. Okay, they're gonna be totally destroyed. Okay, that's why you want to get your mercy while you still can, okay, while the doors of mercy are still open, okay. That's what this is all about, okay. You want to get your mercy while you still can. How in pain the day of Yahweh is near, the day when the Almighty will bring destruction, okay. That's when the so-called white man's going to fall out of power and rulership, okay. The so-called white man's going to fall out of power, okay, and he's going to lose his rulership. Everyone's hands will hang limp and everyone's courage will fail. They will be terrified and overcome with pain, like the pain of a woman in labor. They will look at each other in fear. Their faces will be burned with shame, okay? They're going to be burned with shame, okay? That's the so-called white man, and that's the two-thirds that joined unto this devil, okay? That don't want to see the eradication of the so-called white man, okay? So they can be destroyed already. That's the so-called white man's going to get eradicated, okay? He's the so-called white man's going down, okay? That's why you have to come back into who you are right now while there's still a chance, while the doors of mercy is still open, okay? The angels is coming down here, okay? Yahweh Shai is coming down here, and he's going to eradicate these people when this thing goes down, okay? And put them straight into slavery, okay? And salvation is of the Jews, okay? That's what this is about. The day of Yahweh is coming, the cruel day of his fierce anger and fury. The earth will be made a wilderness and every sinner will be destroyed, okay? So every sinner will be destroyed, okay? That's what this is about, okay? That's why you want to repent while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open. That's what this is all about, okay? Coming back into who you are in relationship to Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, and that's what this is all about, okay? You don't want to let yourself be killed when this thing goes down. Okay? Don't let yourself be killed when this thing goes down. The book of Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 6. Run away from Babylon. Run for your life. Do not be killed because of Babylonian sin. I am now taking my revenge and punishing the punishment it deserves. Okay, that's for eradicating the so-called Native American Indian. Okay, and destroying, taking the tribes of Judah, Levi, and Benjamin, putting them into slavery. Okay, they haven't got off the hook for this. Okay, because the sentence of a crime is done. It's not done expediently. The sons of men are increasing now. The book of Ecclesiasticus. The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 8, verse 11. Why do people commit crime so rarely? Because crimes is not punished quickly enough. Okay, that's why the so-called white man has done that. But his tab is piled up to heaven, and now Yahweh Shai is starting to remember this man for what he's doing. Okay, and these white people are going to get eradicated. Okay, the so-called white man's going to be destroyed. Okay, and the Israelites. Okay, it's only going to be 1/3 to make it out of here with their life when this thing goes down. Okay, it's not going to be too many more people to make it out of here with their life when this thing goes down. Okay, salvation is of the Jews. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 3, verse 23. We were not helped at all by our pagan worship. Who's the pagan worship? Calling God Yahweh. Who's the pagan worship? Jesus Christ. Okay, who's the pagan worship? Allah. Okay, Elohim. Calling God all these wrong names. On the hilltops, help for Israel comes only from Yahweh, our power. Okay, so when this thing goes down, the nations are going to drop missiles on America and eradicate these people. Okay, and then we're going to have to get beamed it up into some so-called UFOs so we don't get jacked up. Okay, and we're going to come down and we're going to start putting these people straight into slavery. Okay, and they're going to have no power. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, but if you're an Israelite, okay, hopefully you're an Israelite, so you could make it out of here. That's why the so-called white man is going to do his last ditch attempt to do the mark of the beast, okay, to try to chip the world, okay. That's why he's going to try to go for his new world order, okay. But that's going to fail, okay. Yahweh Shai is going to come and he's going to eradicate these people and destroy them, okay, and put them straight into slavery. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. Okay, that's why you have to come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, come back while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 25, verse 30. You, Jeremiah, must prophesy, proclaim Everything I have said, you must tell these people. Yahweh will war from heaven and thunder from the heights of heaven. He will war against his people. He will shout against a he will shout like a man treading grapes. Everyone on earth will hear him, and the sound of this and the sound will echo to the ends of the earth. Yahweh has a case against the nations. He will bring all peoples to trial and put to death to the wicked and put the wicked to death. Okay, that's a so-called white man. Yahweh has spoken. Yahweh Almighty says the disaster is coming on one nation after another, and a large and great storm is gathered at the far ends of the earth. On that day, the bodies of those whom Yahweh has killed will be scattered from one end of the earth to the other. No one will mourn them, and they will not be taken away to be buried. They will lie on the ground as like piles of manure, okay? They will lie on the ground as piles of manure, okay? That's Yahweh Shai's putting all these people to death, okay? Killing them, putting them to death, okay? That's why it says, come back while you still have a chance. Cry, you leaders and you shepherds of my people, cry out loud, mourn and roll in dust. The time has come for you to be slaughtered, and you will be butchered like rams. There would be no way for you to escape. Okay, so that's what this is about. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, that's why we have this little brief period. Okay, Yahweh Shah is giving us this little brief period to clean up our ways and get ourselves right. Okay, we still gonna sin, we still gonna go off. Okay, but you gotta attempt to clean up your ways and call upon the names of Yahweh Shai. Okay, Yahweh, the so-called white man messed up on this one. Okay, he's gonna get eradicated. The so-called white man's old news. He's gonna go down. Okay, he's going down. The so-called white man's going down. Okay, he think he's gonna rule forever. That's why he's gonna try to do his new world order. Okay, but when he do his new world order, that's when Yahweh Shah's gonna eradicate this man. Okay, and put him into chains and slavery. Okay, that's why it says, I give captives, I give captives captive. Okay, he gave gifts to men. Okay, the nations are going to get put into slavery. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures. Okay, if you're an Israelite. Okay, that's if you're an Israelite, so you can make it out of here with your life when this thing goes down. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, okay, repenting and coming back to who you are in relationship to these scriptures. The book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 7. Let the wicked leave their way of life and change the way of their thinking. Let them turn to Yahweh our power. He is a merciful and quick to forgive. Okay, so let us turn back into Yahweh Shai. Okay, he's quick to forgive. Okay, forgive us of our sins of what we committed against him. Okay, and all the other nations they're going to be destroyed. Okay, they're going to go straight into slavery. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 30, verse 16. But now all who devour you will be devoured, and all your enemies will be taken as prisoners, slaves. Okay, they're going to be put into slavery. All who oppress you will be oppressed, and all who plunder you will be plundered. Okay, so that's all the other nations. Okay, that's why they're here to wear out the saints. Okay, that's why they always trying to wear out the saints. Okay, of the Most High. You just need to keep posture and keep calling upon Yahweh Yahushai, and keep calling on His divine name. The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 21. While I was looking, the horn made war with Yahweh's people and conquered them. Okay, that's why this devil's trying to wear us out. Okay, he's going to wear out the saints. This is coming from a G&T Bible, so it reads a little bit different. Okay, come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures. Okay. Okay, the so-called white man's going to get eradicated. Okay, he's going to be destroyed. The so-called white man's going down. Okay, his whole empire is going down. Okay, they're going to try to save this thing with the new order, but to know that's when the angels, Yahweh Shai is going to come and destroy this place. Okay, and and put these people straight into slavery. Okay, because it's still going to be white people on the earth, okay, after the day of the Lord. Okay, the day of the Lord is when the so-called white man's going to fall out of power. The book of Yoel, chapter 1, verse 15. The day of Yahweh is near, the day when the Almighty brings destruction. What terror that day will bring. Okay, that's the day when Yahweh Yahushua is going to bring the so-called white man out of power and set up Israel. Okay, that's why the scriptures say this: a day of the Lord is a day of cruel vengeance and wrath and destroying the sinner out of it. Okay, that means eradicating these so-called white people. Okay, and destroying them. Okay, like REI said, we're gonna have breeding farms. Okay, we're gonna breed these devils. Okay, breed them into slavery. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, we're gonna have breeding farms. Okay, breeding these devils. Okay, so, and as we put them into slavery. The book of Yoel, chapter 2, verse 1. Blow the trumpet, sound the alarm on Zion, Yahweh's sacred hill. Tremble, people of Judah. The day of Yahweh is coming soon. It will be a dark and gloomy day, a black and cloudy day. The great army of locusts advance. Okay, that's the nuclear weapons, like darkness spreading over the mountaintops. There will never be anything like it, and there will never be again. Okay. Okay, so once these missiles get detonated, okay, it will never be a day like it again. Like fire, they eat up everything. Like fire, they eat up the plants, and in front of them, the land looks like the Garden of Eden. Okay, that's when in front of them looks like the Garden of Eden. Okay, everything's intact and beautiful. Behind them, it looks like a barren. Nothing escapes them. Okay, nothing escapes them. Okay, those nuclear weapons. Okay, when they get detonated, nothing escapes them. Okay, they eradicate and exterminate everything in its path. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, they're gonna exterminate and eradicate everything in its path. And what they don't get, what the nuclear bombs don't get, the angels they're gonna do. They're gonna come down here destroying and killing as well, doing some mass extermination here in America. Okay, that's why you have to come back into. You heard me say this on multiple times, and you're going to hear me to say this on multiple occasions. Okay, come back into who you are while you still can, okay? While the doors of mercy are still open, okay? So you don't get put to death violently when this thing goes down, okay? So you don't get put straight to death, okay, when this thing goes down, because that's why the scripture says the slain of the slain in that day will be many, okay? Yahweh Shai is going to put many people to death on that day, okay? On the day of the Lord, okay? It's a dark day. It's a dark day, okay? The book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 18. How terrible it will be for you who long for the day of Yahweh. That's a so-called white man. How terrible it's going to be for you, the so-called white man, okay? How terrible is going to be for you, the so-called white man. For that day of Yahweh, what good will that day do you? For it will be like a day, it will be like a day of darkness and not of light. Okay, because the so-called white man's going to it's going to fall out of power. Okay, it will be like someone who runs from a lion to meet a bear, or like someone who comes home to put his hands on the wall only to be bitten by a snake. The day of Yahweh will bring darkness and not light. It will be a day of gloom without any brightness in it, okay? Without any brightness, okay? That's when the so-called white man falls out of power and it's going to get eradicated, okay, and destroyed, okay? That's what, like Sodom and Gomorrah, that place is so desolate now, no one even knows where the buildings are, okay? That's how destroyed it is, okay? When Yahweh reigned on Sodom and Gomorrah. The book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 1. Yahweh will once again be merciful to his people, Israel, and choose them as his own. He will let them live again in their land, on land again, and foreigners will come and live there with them. Many nations will help the people of Israel return to the land which Yahweh gave them, and their nations will be their servants, and Israel slaves. Okay, slavery. Okay, so all the other nations are going to be straight put into slavery. Okay, for 1,000 years. Okay, they're gonna serve the nation of Israel as slaves. Those who once captured Israel will now be captive by Israel, and the people of Israel will rule those who want to oppress them. Okay, that's a so-called white man. Okay, that's a so-called white man. That's a so-called white man. That's why you have to come back into who you are right now while there's still a chance. The book of the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as has afflicted him and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled, and terrible fear shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond that they look for. Okay, that's all these 2/3 Jakes. That's not only talking about the so-called white man, but that's all these 2/3 Jakes that's clinging unto this devil. Okay, not coming clean. Okay, not being Israelites. Okay, not all these Sambo Negroes that don't want to come back into who they are, okay, they're going to get eradicated with the so-called white man. They'd be good in the kingdom, though, okay, because they get put to death and born with a new mind, a whole new mind and body in the kingdom. But on this side, they have to pay with their life, okay, because they don't want to give the so-called white man up. They don't want to give the so-called white man up. Okay, they some Zambo Negroes. Okay, they just want to cling on to the so-called white man. Okay, and Eve, the so-called black woman, the Negro woman. Okay, she's going to get eradicated. Okay, Yahweh already got women for his chosen elect. Okay, they're going to get eradicated. Okay, when this thing goes down. Okay, that's why it says come back into who you are in relationship to these scriptures while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open. The book of Isaiah chapter 14 verse 33. Yahweh will give the people of Israel relief from their pain and suffering and from the hard work which they was forced to do. When he does this, they will they are to mock the king of Babylon. Said the cruel king has fallen. He will never oppress anymore. Okay, so the cruel king has fallen. Okay, the so-called white man's getting pulled, dragged out of power. Okay, that's what these scriptures are talking about. The so-called white man's getting pulled out of power. Okay, he's going to lose rulership. He's going to lose rulership. The so-called white man's going to lose steam. Okay, he's going to get eradicated. Okay, that's why you have to come back into who you are in relationship to the scriptures. Yahweh has ended the powers of the evil rulers who angrily oppress the people. That's the so-called white man's MO. He goes all over the earth, bullying the nations and stealing their resources and stealing their resources. Okay, and bullying the nations, and never stop persecuting the nations they had never conquered. Now, at last, the whole world enjoys rest and peace, and everyone sings for joy. The cypress tree and cedars of Lebanon rejoice over the fallen king, okay, of the white man's fallen out of rulership, okay, because there is no one to cut them down that he is gone, okay. There's no one to cut them down that now he is gone, okay. Now the so-called white man's pulled out of power, okay, and destroyed those that destroy the earth, okay. That's what this is about, to destroy those that destroy the earth. To, to destroy those that destroy the earth, okay. That's what this is about, okay. To destroy those that destroy the earth, book of Revelations. The book of Revelations, chapter 11, verse 18. The book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 18. The heathens were filled with rage, okay? That's all the other nations, because the time for their anger has come. The time for the dead to be judged. That's the so-called white man. The time has come to reward those, reward for the servants of the prophets and all the people of the earth who have revenge for you, great and small. The time has come to destroy those who destroy the earth. Okay, that once again, and that's a so-called white man. Okay, the the one that destroyed the earth. Okay, the one that destroyed the earth. That's a so-called white man getting drug out of power and put into slavery. Okay, put into shackles. Okay, this the so-called white man's going to get put straight into slavery. Okay, what we need to do is be patient and keep calling upon his divine name and keep a posture. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, and I know that's easier said than done, but that's our main job. Okay, and keep pushing out this word. Give him no rest until Jerusalem is made a praise in the earth. Okay, the book of Lamentations chapter 3 verse 26. It is best for us to wait in patience, to wait for him to save us. And it is best to learn for patience in our youth. Okay, so we have to wait and be patient for Yahweh Yahushai, so the day that he winds up catching a prey. Okay, the book of Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 8. Just wait, Yahweh says, wait for the day when I arise and accuse the nations. I will have many, I have made up my mind to gather the nations and kingdoms in order to let them feel the force of my anger. When Yahweh Shai is going to start destroying this place, the whole earth will be destroyed by the fire of my fury. Okay, that's nuclear weapons. Okay, that's nuclear weapons coming from China, Germany, France, Russia. Okay, Pakistan and North Korea. They're going to shoot missiles on this man and just to destroy this place and make it desolate. That's what the Bible calls the day of the Lord. That's why the Bible calls it the day of the Lord, okay? The day of Yahweh when he seeks vengeance for Zion. Let's get it. The book of Isaiah chapter 63 verse 4. I decided that the time to save my people had come. It was time to punish their enemies, okay? And who's the main enemy? The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. It's the so-called white man, okay? He's a chief enemy to the nation of Israel, okay? And this man's gonna get shackles and put on him, okay? The so-called white man messed up on this one, okay? The angels are gonna come. Yahweh Shai is gonna come, and he's gonna eradicate these so-called white people, okay? They're gonna be destroyed, okay? That's why you have to come back into who you are while you still can, while the doors of mercy are still open. The book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 5. Yahweh has ended the power of the evil rulers who have angrily oppressed the people and never stopped persecuting the nations they have conquered. Now at least the day that they have conquered. Now at least the whole land enjoys rest and peace. And everyone sings with joy. Everyone's going to sing with joy when the so called white man falls out of power. The cypress trees and the cedar of Lebanon rejoice over the fallen because there is no one to cut them down now that he is gone. Okay, there's no one to cut him down. That now he's gone. Okay, there's no one to cut him down now that he's gone. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, the world of the dead is getting ready to welcome you, all the insignificant kingdoms, the kings of the Babylon, the ghosts of those who are powerful kings, powerful on the earth, are stirred up about. The ghosts of their kings will rise up from their thrones. They are to call to him, now you are weak as we are. You are one of us, okay, a third world nation. You used to be honored with music and harps. Now you are in the world of the dead. You lie in a bed of maggots and that are covered with a blanket of worms. Okay, decay. Okay, totally eradicated. Okay, destroyed. Maggots. King of Babylon, bright and morning sun, Satan, the so-called Illuminati, the morning star has fallen from heaven. Okay, the so-called Illuminati going to be drug out of power. In the past, you conquer nations, but now you have been thrown to the ground. Okay, that's a so-called white man is going to get thrown to the ground. You were determined to climb up to heaven to have a place your throne above the highest stars. Okay, all these space stations. Okay, all these space stations. You thought you would sit like a king upon the mountains, like the stars, like the north where the gods assemble. You said you will climb the tops of the clouds and be like the Almighty, but instead you have been brought down to the deepest parts of the earth of the dead. Okay, so the so-called white man's going to get drug out of power. Okay, he's going to get drug out of power and lose rulership. Okay, and basically once again, okay, be destroyed. Okay, all that see them shall clap their hands. Okay. The book of Nahum, chapter 3, verse 19. There is no remedy for your injury, and your wound cannot be healed. All those who hear the news of your destructions clap their hands for joy. Did anyone escape your endless cruelty? No. Okay, the so-called white man was cruel upon everyone on the earth. Okay, even including himself. Okay, so when this man falls out of power, all the other nations are going to rejoice. Okay, all the other nations are going to rejoice. Okay, when a so-called white man falls out of power. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 35, verse 14. The sovereign Yahweh says, I will make you desolate, that the whole world will rejoice at your fall, at your downfall. Okay, when the so-called white man falls out of power, okay, and loses rulership. Okay, so when we get beamed up on some UFOs, okay, and then the nations are going to get jacked up, okay, then when we come out of those UFOs, they ain't going to have no more power, okay, then we're going to start rounding them up and putting them into slavery, okay, and shackles, okay. That's what this is all about, okay, and Israel gets put back into its rightful estate as a world rulerships upon the earth, okay. That's what this is all about, okay? But you have to, it starts when you coming back into who you are in relationship to who you are in these scriptures, okay? The day of the Lord, okay? That's the eradication of the white man, and all the other nations are going to get put into slavery, okay? That's what this is it's all about. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 35, verse 15. Just as you rejoice at the devastation of Israel, my own possession, the mountains of Seir, yes, all the land of Edom will be desolate. Then everyone will know that I am Yahweh. So when Yahweh eradicates these people and destroy them and make America a desert, then everyone's going to know that he's Yahweh. Okay, the supreme God, okay, the supreme ruler of the earth, okay, heaven and earth, the possessor of heaven and earth, okay. So that's what this is all about, okay. And you only have a little bit of time left to come back into who you are in relationship to who you are, okay, because he will go for his microchip, okay. He's going to go for his chip, okay. He's going to go for his new world order. We know what his plans are, okay? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices, okay? He's going to go for his new world order, okay? But what we have to do is keep posturing and keep patience and keep calling on his divine name. That's what this is about. So on that note, I'd like to give all praises and honor and glory to Almighty Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, Shalom.